Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week. So let's get into this week's books. I had 9 books, so number 9 for me this week was Batman Knightwatch, issue 1, a book I kind of got on a whim. I knew I had to do with social media, and I saw the Bat Family on the cover, so that tends to make me want to pick up a book. And this is very kiddie, and I did not know this was going to be an all-ages book. It even ends with the DC Super Pets, like a short comic in there. But at the same time, I don't mind all-ages books. There's a lot of all-ages books that I enjoy. A great example was last week's DC's Back to School book, which was actually my pick of the week. And, I love Tiny Titans. I think that's a great all-ages book. And I think a good all-ages book is one that could, cater to adults and cater to kids. So adults could get kids into comics and they could read it together. And this, I don't think, really achieved that. It kind of had this Batman 66 vibe, but I don't know if it was on purpose or not. The dialogue was really weak, almost out of character for Batman. And I felt like the artwork was a little scrunchy, like their faces looked a little weird, especially their mouths. So I just didn't love this. I don't know who the audience was for this. Again, I guess it was for kids, but I don't really know if I think it tried too hard to be for kids that I don't think it really achieved what it wanted to do. So overall, I'm going to give that 1 star, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is The Dead Lucky issue 2, a book I was really excited for, and issue 1 didn't grab me as much as I wanted to, and issue 2 kind of continues to do the same thing. I feel like there's a lot thrown at you. There's the actual Dead Lucky aspect of things. You get a little slice of life portion. You get some of the other secondary characters, and it's just hard to sink your teeth into. It's hard to really get into the world just because, again, I think there's so much being thrown at you. I do think the artwork is really good. I love the bright colors and kind of this sci-fi bend that is going on with the book, but overall I've wanted to get into this book more than I have, and I don't know if it gave me enough to get issue 3. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, I will say one of the bigger books for this week, which is Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 4. It used to just be called Dark Crisis. Now you have the Infinite Earths aspect added. And, I do think this is one of the better events for DC, but it's also not one that's completely grabbing me. There still doesn't feel like there's many stakes because it doesn't feel connected to the wider DC universe. And, I think they do too much in each issue where there's not one focal character. There's, all right, here's a little Green Lantern, here's a little Beast Boy, and I feel like because they throw too much at you, there's not a lot of progression in the story. There are definitely bigger moments in the issue, but there's not a lot of organic lead up to it. So like the big cliffhanger of there's another multiverse, or again, you kind of have Beast Boy who might die, and you're like, oh, I kind of wish there was more emotional baggage to that. Maybe we just follow Nightwing for a whole issue, or we get a tie-in where we get to follow Nightwing for a whole issue. And I don't really feel like this book is achieving that because it's kind of rushed and because it's not really connected to anything else. You're like, where's the stakes for something that feels like there should be stakes? But the artwork is so good. I really feel like this is the exact artwork you want to see for an event that feels big. So that's why it's a little higher for me. And overall, giving that 3 stars. I don't necessarily think it's a bad event. I actually think there's good moments in here. I just don't know if it's living up to something called Crisis and living up to expectations, for me at least. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Dark Knights of Steel, Tales from the Three Kingdoms, a book I was really looking forward to because we haven't gotten a lot of Dark Knights of Steel in the past couple of months, and I missed the book. I love the book. And, these are obviously just short stories, so it kind of builds the world a little bit. And, that's exactly what you get. I don't think this is world crushing. I don't necessarily think you need to read this, but if you're a fan of this series, you're a fan of this world, you want a little bit more expansion, read this. But I don't think there was any story that really blew my mind. But I do think the art did. All 3 of the art styles were really good and really eye-catching, and which is why I wish the stories were a little bit more impactful for the overall world. I don't necessarily think you need to read this. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Batman issue 127, another book that has just been really, really great, and I've been enjoying Chip Zdarsky's run. I love that Jimenez is back on art. It really brings almost this Tynion vibe to the book, just because it is the same visuals or the same artist, and we get a bit more information about Failsafe and this new Batman, and that's something I really enjoyed about this issue, is that other books, and we've seen them recently, a lot of other books, they kind of leave that big mystery question for a long time. It'll be like, all right, well, let's get to a point. Like, I at this point, I don't know if I care who that person is. And this one, right after that character exists, the next issue kind of reveal who it is. And I like that they didn't wait. The pacing's good for that. It is mostly an action issue. There's not a ton happening here, but it's a good action issue. I like the direction and curious to see where it's going to go. So overall, gave that 3 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty, issue 4. I'm not usually a Captain America fan. I say this every time I review this book, but I'm continuing to like this book a lot. There are times where it feels a little too wordy, but I love Cap. I really love his voice. I think the writers really get him, and we get to see that from different angles in this issue, where he rebonds with Winter Soldier or Bucky. We get to see him interact with this community, all while this bigger plot is progressing, and I think progressing rather well. We're up to issue 4, and I feel like every issue you do get a little bit more movement, and I think another book probably would have stalled on that. And the artwork is really great, classic style, and it just fits so well for a Captain America book, and as someone who doesn't read Captain America, it gets me to sink my teeth a little bit into this mythology. So overall, I gave that 3.5 stars. I had a lot of fun with this one. If you like Steve, I think Steve really shines in this issue. And I don't think there's a huge progression in this one, but it definitely is worth picking up. So moving on to number 3, which is She-Hulk issue 6. Another one that's a little bit more of a point A to point B, but some really good character moments, which Rainbow does always an amazing job with. We get a little bit more progression of where her law job is going, what her as a lawyer, what's her next case, and it looks like it's going to be connected to the X-Men, which I'm really curious to see, because the X-Men has been so godly that we don't really get to see them grounded as often. So to see Nightcrawler just wearing a baseball hat felt nice. It felt almost classic, so I enjoyed that, and seeing a more grounded element to the X-Men and their island, Krakoa, and just how that's going to affect the law firm in general. So I like that moment. And then the Jack of Hearts, we're getting some romance between him and She-Hulk. It takes a little while to build up to there in the last part of the issue, but definitely going to bring, I think, a lot of interesting plot points to the surface, because we've already got some, mysterious things going on with Jack of Heart, with a couple of cliffhangers from She-Hulk, and then also no one knowing he's alive, I think, is going to be a big moment, especially because Patsy and She-Hulk in the beginning kind of have a conversation about Jack of Hearts as well, and again, makes it very known that no one knows that he's around, and I think people are going to be a little pissed that she's keeping the secret from them. And the artwork is always so good, especially for this more slice-of-life, character-driven series. So overall, giving this 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, one of my favorite books on stands, especially from Marvel, and that is Punisher, issue 6. This, I think, just does such a great job at balancing action with emotion, especially with the flashbacks, where we get to see, how did Frank get to this moment, and what's his connection to his family? Because we always get this kind of broader story of, I miss my family, this is who I am on the Punisher, and now we actually get to see those flashbacks. We get to see those moments that made him miss his family or made him feel like he's not a great person, and that really builds into the more action scenes with Ares and him trying to bring his children back, and it makes those scenes that are just actiony have more weight because you're getting the interweaving of those flashbacks, and makes a really well-balanced book where the two artists do such a great job at owning into what they're doing. So again, the flashbacks, you have one artist who's very more emotional, same artist that did Robert Kirkman's Outcast, and then you get more of the action-y side of things with the other artists, and I think they both shine in their own way, and both stories really help each other. So overall, I gave this 4 stars. We also get a cliffhanger between Punisher and Daredevil going up against each other. It's just a fun superhero book with some of that emotional weight, doing something different with Punisher, but still staying true to the character, which I wish all superhero books can do. So like I said, that's 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, another book that I think other superhero books should aim to be like, and that is the new Champion of Shazam issue 2. I'm so sad that this is only a 4-issue miniseries. I truly wish this is an ongoing, because this just is such a well-balanced book where we get to see this kind of YA angle. We very much get in the head of Mary as she's trying to balance being a hero, as she's trying to figure out what happened to her parents who have been kidnapped. There's other people that have been kidnapped as well, and all while being the adults of the family, while the other kids are dealing with, again, their parents being gone, Billy being gone, and them not having powers anymore, as Mary kind of has to hold the weight of it all. And I just feel like the introspectiveness of this issue, and of this book in general, is what I love about superhero books, and especially the angsty YA books. And I think this just hits it over the nail, where you get a good balance of get into Mary's head, seeing her with other people, seeing her as a hero, seeing that action as we build with the plot as well. And the artwork is so perfect as it goes to the actions, it goes to the facial expressions. It's just such a well-balanced book. Honestly, it reminds me of Supergirl being super in a lot of ways, and the stuff I enjoyed about that book I think really bleeds into this one, except it's in continuity. So overall, giving that 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was, because at the end of the video, we always talk about the viewer's pick of the week. So let's get into the viewer's pick of the week, which was DC's Belle Reve, the school book that I mentioned that was my pick of the week from last week. And here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.